Hello and welcome to the CBS Beast Texas Breakdown Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Searfoss, here with the best Jason Garrett to ever grace Texas. I think that's right. I feel like most people around here would agree with you.
Maybe. Some, maybe, yeah.
I mean, you've been around here for a minute, right? I mean, you've been with the
Yes.
station, been in Texas, been in East Texas for a while. How long have you been here in Texas?
Well, I've lived here. I grew up here. Went to school right down the road at Chapel Hill. I only lived away in Fort Worth for, I think, 6 years and moved back here.
Yeah, I mean, it's still Texas. It's all Texas, and that's what matters, because today is actually a big-time anniversary. It's the 30th anniversary of what many people call the greatest football game to ever be played, let alone maybe the best high school football game ever to be played.
Definitely the best. I'm not going to say maybe or anything like that. It is the best. And as you can tell, on anniversary, I dressed for the occasion.
Of course.
I wear the blue, for you know who.
Yes, John Tyler, because
Yes.
it is their win over Plano East. Then John Tyler, now known as Tyler, but then John Tyler's win over Plano East in a game that was improbable. And we've basically, over the years, heard from everybody on it. We've heard from the players, we've heard from announcers, but we've never heard from the fans. And Jason, you were there. You were at that game.
I was there. And, experiencing it live, that's what was still, I don't know if you can see it, still get the chills. But yeah, it was, if I remember correctly, it was like Thanksgiving break. My family and I, we were down out of town, visiting other family. And we were like, you know what? We're going to the football game. This is like going to be the best game. It's like the winner of this game was more than likely going to win state. And we were like, yeah, it was like a 4-hour drive from where we were at. So we hopped on the interstate, drove up there to the ball game, went to the game. It was me, my dad, my mom, my sister. The only time the 4 of us went to a football game together, ever. Probably,
Yeah, and that says a lot to me, because you did not go to John Tyler High School. You went to Chapel Hill, right?
Yes, but my mom did go to John Tyler. She actually graduated a couple years behind Earl Campbell. So, there's a family tradition there.
Big name,
yeah. So that's, part of the reason why, I've followed John Tyler, Tyler High, through my life,
And that would make sense, because, out here in Texas, and especially East Texas, that I've noticed is that these high school teams are like the equivalent of what college teams are for a lot of people. They follow it, they live it, they breathe it, they wear the merch everywhere you go. You go out and you'll see older people, not just the students wearing John Tyler, Tyler Legacy merch, Chapel Hill merch, just the people in the town rep their teams.
Yep.
And it stands long enough to where I guess your mom is taking you guys to John Tyler High School football games in the playoffs when it's not the high school that you go to.
Right.
And so you drive 4 hours out there. I want to hear about this stadium experience, because it's not the Dallas Cowboys stadium that I know and that I've ever known. I've never even heard, I've heard of it, but I never fathomed Cowboys ever playing anywhere else other than the Jerry World that we see right now. What's the stadium like?
The stadium, at that time it wasn't as in bad a shape as what it was when they finally took it down, but it was still pretty rough. If you ever watch, videos back of but it was still pretty rough. If you ever watch, videos back of either that game or other older high school games or even Cowboys games, the turf, it's not this nice green plush. It's the turf from years of being rained on. You see these big wet splotches all over the field. There is no warmth inside the stadium. It was cold. I ain't gonna lie, it was pretty chilly that night. And just the atmosphere for that game, and this is something that what I kind of know vividly, because anytime that my dad and I ever went to a football game, we always sat by the band, especially a John Tyler game. And so we were like right about the 20-yard line, on John Tyler's side. And but just the atmosphere, everybody just pumped, rowdy, trust me, it was something to feel, you know. And you can see videos of it, but it doesn't give you that. But to be there live,
And it kind of goes for all of these football games because the schools that invest and have a very good band always have the better experiences of football games. The last game I was at, even just this last week, Longview, Lancaster, those two bands were loud and you could feel it. And it just makes that whole experience that much better, especially when the game is close and especially when the game is good. But I guess in that first half, it was not a good football game.
It really was. And I kind of, listened to part of it, whenever I was out shooting my game. And I was just like, man, this is not a typical, Longview Lancaster game.
No. But, I mean, and then kind of reflecting on the John Tyler game, too, it was also not a good football game in that first quarter, right? I mean, they went up big, or they went down big.
It wasn't good for Plano East.
Oh, yeah, Plano East, sorry, they went up big.
It was, John Tyler, they came out, I mean, they stormed them, which they had the team that, it was basically a running back committee. Teams knew what they were going to do. They were going to run the ball and they were going to run it down your throat. And, I mean, they just, powerhouse run, but, usually whenever you think of running teams, you think, okay, it's not going to be a high-scoring game, possibly, just because the clock's going to be continuous. No, opposite. They could score at will. Like, I mean, if they wanted to drive the ball, and take 10 minutes off the clock, they could. Or if they wanted to do it in 2 plays, 90 yards, not a problem, But that was, something about that team, the magic of that team. And, like you said, I didn't go to John Tyler. I didn't graduate that year. But, I knew of most of the players, so watching them all season long, basically. But, yeah, they scored on them, Plano East, way too quick and real fast, super easy. And that kind of probably leads up to kind of where you're wanting to go with this. It was a blowout at halftime. Yeah. I mean, it was just blowout. And on John Tyler's side, we're all partying, celebrating, hooting, hollering. Plano East side is starting to look like a ghost town. I mean, they traveled huge. I mean, they had probably twice as more fans as we did.
Well, it's a lot closer, too.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not basically a home game, but when you're playing against a team that's 4 hours out, it's basically a home game for Plano. I mean, that's the DFW area.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said earlier, the winner of that game was more than likely going to win state. That's how good that these two teams were that were clashing so early in the playoffs. It's like, man, why in the world is, UIL put them at this stage? But, hey, it made for what became the best game ever played.
So now, I mean, these fans are starting to leave, and you're seeing them hit the exits, and then the second half starts. So walk me through the feeling of those Plano East players coming out. How did they look coming out the gate?
Some of them looked defeated. Some of them looked like, okay, we've got to do something. Our backs are literally against the wall. If we want to continue our football career, which, after that, if they went to 16 weeks, after that 16 weeks, that's it for them. Some of them, might have went on, but, it's like, it's now or never for a lot of them. And, some of them like, I don't want to go out this way. We were too good this year to go out this way. And sure enough, I mean, hey, that's what happened. They came out and they shocked, the John Tyler crowd, and, with their plays and just, you can watch clips on YouTube and stuff like that and watch basically the highlights, kind of. And if you do, I mean, you see John Tyler just bull rushes a lot of times, and the quarterback's just running for his life, chunks up a prayer, they get it. But there's nobody 30 yards around because they all collapse on the quarterback or they're downfield, so they'd hit the screen pass or they'd hit a route coming across the middle and just, they'd be able to break for the yards. And whenever they do, heck, they've got so many blockers downfield to where
it just starts working out.
Yeah.
So then they start kind of creeping their way back into this ball game. Mm-hmm. At what point, as a Tyler fan, do you remember going, okay, hold on. Hold on. They're starting to get back. Let's not make this any harder than it needs to be. Let's stop this.
It was, I would say, because it was probably, because the whole comeback, it went, pretty much the whole second half. And, at first it was kind of slow for Plano East, on the comeback. But then all of a sudden, whenever they got the first onside kick, you're like, okay, everybody gets one onside kick. They score. Okay, hey, whatever. Yeah,
Let them have one.
Exactly. Let them have it.
The equivalent of a gentleman's sweep.
Yeah. So they get two. You're like, okay, luck might be bouncing their way a little bit, And so you kind of see the remainder of their fans, maybe 5 people over there, not really 5, but, that's what it seemed like compared to what they started with, kind of cheering, in which, hey, most of them were probably mom and dads, cheering on their kids. And they drive, score again. You're like, all right, kind of starting to scratch a little bit and going, okay, what's going on? And sure enough, they line up third one. And you're just like, it's coming. It's fixing to happen. And what does he do? They get it.
Oh.
And you're like, how? This never happens.
Start looking around and see, is someone doing magic around here?
It's like, who's stringing the ball, And it's just like, you've got to be kidding me, And all of a sudden, the whole momentum shift was on their side. They were scoring at will. They were driving on John Tyler's defense, which, was Cujo. That was the name of their defense. And, which not many people did. They were kind of like doing to John Tyler what John Tyler did to them, earlier. And, it just.
And it's tough to remember because these kids, they're kids. We see these players now and they're all adults, and it's easy to look at a football player and see just the helmet and the pads. And you don't see them as a person, especially from the far away cameras. These kids are kids at the time. They're 16 to 18 years old, likely. I don't care how good you are, when you get momentum going in a certain direction, it's going to be overpowering, especially if you get emotions into it. Like you said, these are their seniors. They're playing in a Cowboy Stadium in front of a crowd. This team is likely going to go on and win the state championship. When you get emotions involved in it, it'll beat talent a lot of times. And when you let them back in that game, get them that kind of momentum, all of a sudden it's a brand new ball game. And then they get their 4th onside kick. What was your feeling when you had that 4th onside kick?
How? It's like, I'm just like dumbfounded. It's like, it's to my knowledge, I've never seen 4 onside kicks recovered. Hey, somebody could challenge it or whatever. They might find it, whatever. But 4 onside kicks in a football game within that time span, which it's coming, where it's more likely going, and you let them have it.
The unsung hero of this game is that kicker.
Yeah, exactly.
You see NFL kickers struggle to get the onside kick down. They've changed the techniques of it. They're laying the ball on the side now, trying to get the most bounces, but that kid had it down.
Hey, I don't know whatever happened to him. I don't know if he ever went to college or NFL. Well, I might have to look that up and see.
Look at that.
Because, hey, he would be the master of, if a coach needs to be, hey, we need to learn how to do onside kick.
Pull the camp. Yeah, get this kid here. What was your mom's reaction? She's the one that went to John Tyler. Was she as emotionally involved as this as you were?
Nah, she wasn't as emotionally involved as, like me and my dad were. But, she was shocked, and she was kind of like, really,
And then those fans started coming back, right?
Trying to. They, some of them, I don't know how they got back in because, a lot of them had literally went out to their cars, and if I remember correctly, it's like once you went out, you ain't coming back in. And most of the time after halftime, they start selling tickets. Well, at a stadium like that, they close gates,
Yeah.
and there's like, unless you're climbing gates or whatever to get in, but yeah, it was, I think somehow like miraculously came back in. I don't know how, but, where they came from. But yeah, it was just, their crowd then was of the smaller magnitude was just as loud as what John Tyler had, and we had half the, basically half the stadium almost, the lower bowl, and you're just like, and it goes with that whole momentum, the emotions, at that point you're just like, and John Tyler's side, it was a hush.
Yeah.
Their side was partying and loud and all
And
that.
all of a sudden you're seeing the John Tyler players start maybe hanging their head a little bit, maybe getting down, or were they not?
No, it was more of a emotional, as far as like, a fired up kind of like, why did we let them do that? Why and how did we let them do this?
And I guess you kind of have to have that reaction, because if you start hanging your head, then you're just going to let them bull rush it. You know, they're gone. Because we know how this game ended. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is why the kicker didn't get any looks, because after so many onside kicks, he finally gets the chance to just boot it back.
It was like 20-something seconds left to go in the game.
20 seconds left in the game.
And he kicks it deep.
Kicks it deep, but not deep enough to get out of the end zone.
Yep.
He fields it on about, what, the 15, 20-yard line?
Something like that.
Something like that.
And, it's a play that, you don't see it a whole lot in high school. I've seen, attempted much now. But basically, the whole kicker team, they set up that wall. And, he just he comes around and he hits that John Tyler sideline. And, I mean, I don't even think he was ever touched.
It didn't look like it.
Yeah.
No.
And he goes straight down the sideline. And, at that point, whenever he got past, when I think it was like basically just the kicker left, that would have had a chance if he had took the angle right. But we knew that wasn't going to happen. We knew that wasn't going to happen.
He took off. He was fast, the playmaker. Yes. He was gone. The only thing that I can think of that something similar to that would be the Iron Bowl with, was it 2013, Auburn, the kick, Mm-hmm. They kick it. Alabama kicks it to win the game. He fields it at, what, the back out of bounds line, the back of the end zone, runs it all the way back to win the game, walk it off. The Auburn wins the Iron Bowl. It was incredible. I remember watching that when I was little on TV, and I can only imagine being there for something like that in person. Mm-hmm. What were some of the emotions that you witnessed around you?
After the, whenever, because John Tyler was trailing at that point.
Yeah.
And, we were like, you've got to be kidding me. 20-something seconds left. Most of the times you're like, game's over. Yeah. The other team just scored a touchdown. They got everything going. You're just like, it's like, okay, it's going to kick it deep, and, we'll get the ball, maybe the 20, you're 25, and then we've got to put together, plays to get there.
Yeah, because you're thinking drive. How are we going to put together a drive, especially when your teams are running, offense? I mean, you say you can rattle it off, but if the defense is starting to hold you, then we're going to have to start throwing the ball. We don't have time to run the ball as much. Especially you have to think about timeouts and stuff. You see this guy take it all the way back. I would just be starting thinking, disbelief, like, of course this is how this ends. Of course this is how this goes.
And, all of a sudden, as soon as you see the touchdown, it's like, as a fan, you start scanning the field, looking for that yellow little piece of cloth sitting somewhere, because you're just like, oh my gosh, is this going to really happen? Field was clear.
Clear, at the puddles, but no flag.
No flag, and that's whenever it just, we probably broke every decibel record ever set inside Texas Stadium that night. It was just pure, just like, oh my gosh, we energy. Just witnessed, this, the energy, the players on the field, the emotions that you see them, and, on both sides. You're happy, man, we just, John Tyler just won the game, with that run. And, little piece. Feels bad for the Plano East guys.
Just a little piece. Just a little piece.
They put together, the greatest comeback.
Yes.
And so that's the thing is, it's the greatest game, but also it's the greatest comeback and the greatest, I guess, double comeback.
Yeah, and then you see the Tyler, players are all running into the tunnel and they're going crazy. Kids throwing their pads off. Well, my favorite part is seeing the dude haul, and it's got an aura to it because it's the old-time football. There's playing on AstroTurf. He's probably not wearing cleats. He's wearing flats. He's got the big old pads, and they're bouncing up and down on the loose jersey. He's got a big old helmet. The chin strap's going everywhere. And he just scores, and then the kids are just rolling their helmets, just going nuts. You love to see it, and it's all on a grainy TV, and the announcers are going crazy, talking about how, oh my goodness. I mean, it's the Plano announcers that are having the best reaction.
That's the ones that that you hear most of in scene, and I think that's the one that like the other ESPNs or whatever play back. They're like they're playing back the Plano East because the favorite comments, I just wet myself or I just peed myself or something, and it's just like, and then you're just like, oh my God, But,
and then Tyler does go on to win the state championship that year, and the rest is history. Now we're still talking about it 30 years later. That's like 2 generations of people, and we're still talking about this game. And a lot of these guys haven't strapped on the pads since that time. Maybe a week after that game. Like you said, sometimes this is the best thing that they'll ever have in their lives. And it's really great that we get to cherish this and still talk about it all this time. I think ESPN's made a documentary about it. I mean, we bring it up after every year. I mean, every milestone, these guys got to come out. And who I always really feel for is the Plano East guys who have to come out and talk about this stuff. At some point, they're going to get sick of this, right? We're going to get the 60th and the 65th, and they'll be like, come on.
It's like, really? Are we still talking about this?
Still talking about this? Man,
this game could probably be talked about, way beyond our time. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how football's going to carry, through through, I guess, the rest of our lives or whatever. But, as long as there's, a pigskin going up through the air, there's, this has to be one of the games talked about.
And we will continue to do it. And that's all we have here at the Beast Texas Breakdown Pod on the 30th anniversary of the greatest game ever played. I'm here with Jason Garrett. I'm Jimmy Searfoss. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.